My main man.
What's up, bud?
What's going on, Charles? How's your day, brother, man?
Good day so far, man. How about you?
Oh, we living the dream, dude. We're getting a little weather here in Florida, but hey, we got the pollen season, so it's
What kind of weather are you guys having right now?
we're getting a little rain, which is not bad, but we've been on a little 2 month drought, so garden's dead. Gas prices are high, so we're trying to take our wins, Golf is good though. We're hitting that time of year where, you try to get out almost every day before we hit 85 and high humidity. But yeah, man, how's the weather up in North Carolina?
It's been warm the last well, probably the last week. It's been a lot warmer, which is nice, but it's kind of rainy and overcast the last couple of days, so a little dreary right now. But that's
Yeah,
the turn of spring, right? And that's
yeah,
how we're
that's how we're built, baby.
every year. That's right.
Yeah, I love it, man. Yeah, I was hopping on your Instagram, just checking out your vibes, see what you been up to lately, man. I see big golfer, huh? Now,
Yeah,
Austin,
yeah.
Austin was rumoring that you have a couple hole-in-ones. Is that true?
I have actually never had a hole in one.
He said you got a swing that looks similar to Justin Thomas's. I was like, I got to check it out then. I don't know if he was bringing
When
anything
I
to
play a lot, I play pretty good, but I haven't been playing a lot for the last 2 or 3 years. So I've played a little. I played probably 3 times in the past month, and that's a lot for me. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's hit or miss. Some days
How,
are good, and then I use all my good shots, and then go back next week, and nothing's there at all.
and you hit that one birdie like on 17. You're like, you know what, baby, we're back. Get the boys back.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I love it, man. Well, I appreciate you taking a moment today, dude. I wanted to come up with, an opportunity just to kind of interview professionals in the settings and learn about their leadership traits, their styles, how they really help cultivate a culture that is, it's easy to give our sales pitch to individuals saying, hey, you should join the team. You should join us. We give great commission strategies and, growth and things like that. But I'm really interested on like leadership and why people stay around and, buy into the dream, the goal. Like I'm so fascinated with the Coach K's of the world. Like my boy was there for 42 years. I don't know if we'll see that again. That's probably a rarity, but what did he do to the culture of Duke or, other legends like Saban and whatnot? Like I'm so interested in that. And that's kind of like why I'd love to have you on, man. Cause I know with the real estate team and things of that nature, it seems like you as a family business, it's been going around for a while. So I'm excited to learn about the Burgess brand, baby.
Well, we'll do what we can.
I love it, man. So tell me a little bit about it. Like, tell me a little bit about the team. Like, how long has it been established now? What's that day-to-day look like and things like that, man?
Yeah. So right out of college at 21 years old, I basically started real estate because it was a family business. So my stepdad and my mom owned a local brokerage here in our hometown. They had done real estate, and my mom was a mortgage broker basically my entire life. So it was very comfortable and familiar for me. It wasn't anything I really went to school or anything
Mm-hmm.
thinking I would do. I started as a biochemistry major, pre-med track, and pretty quickly realized that wasn't for me.
Wasn't the
Um,
vibe.
yeah, wasn't what felt like I was cut out to do for the rest of my life. So last year of college, kind of did a little bit of work with them on a class that I had, and it was designed to try to go out in the community and help businesses, use your college degree to evaluate and analyze and make recommendations and try to help businesses just become better. And honestly, couldn't find anybody else to let a 21-year-old kid come try to analyze their business with no experience, So my stepdad was like, sure, come do it. And dove in and realized there was some opportunities there for them, to take advantage of tech at the time. That was like 2007, late 2006, early 2007. So, I mean, the iPhone was like brand new then, that was a
Yeah.
long time
It
ago.
was
So,
still the iPhone, like the very first one. The iPad was
yeah, it
still
was
the
the
big
first one.
vibe.
I remember switching to like AT&T so I could get the iPhone, this new thing. And it was crazy. So that was the start of it. And so after college, came back, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, to be quite honest with you.
hmm
And I think that's pretty common for a lot of young folks not to know what they want to do out of college, and you got this degree and you're not sure what to do. So I got my real estate license while my now wife, then girlfriend, was doing her last semester in college doing student teaching. And so that was in Charlotte. So I got my real estate license, and then in March of 2007 got licensed and came and was like, all right, I guess I'll do this and just see what happens until I figure out something else to do. I didn't think this would be my full-time career, and that's how it got started. So I did that for 9 years as an individual. So, great time to start building a brand new young real estate career in '07 with everything that was going on at the time. So I really look back at that and think it was a blessing because it forced me to go through the tough time and build a business in that point. And to be honest with you, I didn't know what a business was at that time. I had no idea. I just was trying to make ends meet and did pretty well. Pretty outgoing guy. Like to think I'm pretty smart. I'm a learner, so catch on things quick and just picked it up. And that was it was a pretty trying first couple of years, but did enough to certainly make ends meet and do fairly well and start to build a little business. Had no idea. Back then things weren't as readily available, so it was all book format and like listening to audio tapes and stuff like like it was very different then.
I mean, that was still like almost encyclopedia. Like that was still kind of the main form. And we're starting to get to the Google era, right? Like it was still there, but I still have recollections of like, if you want to learn something, hit that encyclopedia, which I couldn't even imagine if that was still a thing.
I remember going to my stepdad at one point and being like, hey, could I talk you into buying like $140 worth of like these cassette tapes or these, I think they were CDs at the time, but they were like, audio books at the time. There was no Audible or anything, and just constantly learning and tweaking. And so I ended up becoming like one of the top producers in our local MLS, which is not really we're a small MLS, but successful enough to really think, hey, I got something figured out, And so, got pretty good doing that, and honestly just got burnt out. That last year I was solo agent. I think I did like 63 transaction sides with no help, no admin, no team, no nothing. And it wasn't like it was the worst year ever by any means. Didn't really have, had a young child, but didn't have, didn't have the commitments yet that we have now.
Yeah.
Didn't have team or responsibilities or anything else like that. So it really wasn't extremely stressful. I just realized very quickly, I am not going to repeat this year after year, or if I do, at least I'm going to burn out very quickly. And so there were certain parts of the business and aspects that I just didn't like, and I gravitated more towards listings and marketing. So I have a managerial leadership degree from UNC Charlotte, North Carolina, and I have like a focus in marketing. So it wasn't a double major, but it was like you could pick your own path. It wasn't like this defined thing. So I did leadership and marketing classes. I figured I really couldn't go wrong with either one of those, even though I didn't know how to apply them. And it turns out now, 20 years later, 17 years later, whatever, I'm using a lot of the stuff that I learned then, and I'm glad I have that background. But that was the point where I hit that like almost burnout wall. And realized that like this isn't going to be something I want to repeat year after year after year. It's like this running hard, working all the time, handling every aspect of the business, wearing 17 hats a day, trying to be everything to everybody, right? So like that was when a good friend of mine, Blue Pittman, he was working at my dad's brokerage. He used to be my baseball coach. We were close friends through high school and college, stayed in touch. And then when I came back, he started about a year before me in real estate. And we just generally just kind of talking and masterminding and just trying to figure out what we do from here and next and how things were going. And the idea was thrown out. Like I had done some research and listened to some things and saw some teams being formed in these bigger markets. And I thought it was a pretty interesting aspect. I had read the Red Book, Gary Keller's book. And so it was one of those where I was like, man, I kind of think we could do this. Like this could be an interesting thing to do. So we talked about it. I loved listings. I loved marketing. I like working with sellers. I like the schedule better, just a ton of things. And believe it or not, he hated all of those things. He liked working with buyers. For some reason, he just he was a teacher before that and a coach. And so like just nurturing relationships and kind of leading buyers through the step was his thing. Didn't really enjoy computers and technology and marketing and all these, things that go with listing. And so it was just like this natural fit that came together for us. It was like, well, hey, why don't we go do this? You work the buyers, I'll work the sellers. We'll team up. We'll get an admin to help us on the back end to free us up to do a little bit more work, and we'll just sort of start the process. So that was how the team started in 2015. We tried to do the team at my dad's brokerage, but it was just your traditional old school, very original brokerage. Teams were never a thing around here. I remember him saying to me, like, I don't know about the teams, that's probably not going to work around here. So I hate to see you do that. I really don't want to change my model of compensation and services and all that to try to go this teams route to fit in the brokerage. So I don't think we're going to be able to do this. And so that was when we, through like some connections, it was actually Boomtown. We'd been to some conferences. I'd met a lot of people in their Facebook community at that time, and a lot of them were with KW. And so I reached out to Dan Hamilton's in Greenville, South Carolina, and I knew he had a team. He was willing to chat with me and talk and kind of shared with me. And so we talked to Tommy Stevenson up in Keller Williams in Asheville. He was like, that's your closest market center up there, in your state. And I highly recommend you talk to him. So that was what we did. And I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, we were off, and we had zero clue of what we were doing. We just knew it felt right and figured we could just make the adjustment as much as possible to make it work. So
it'll take care of itself.
Yeah. So Thanksgiving, I remember Thanksgiving 2015 was when we formally announced we had ordered our signs, we had done our branding and all that. And that was where the story started for the team. And it was just Blue and I. And we were like, all right, we think we're supposed to hire an admin because that's what the book said to do.
Right.
So we started trying. Like, neither one of us had ever managed people or owned a business or done any of that. It was like all new to us at that time. So we jumped we jumped in the water, had no idea how the temperature was or whether we could really swim or not. We just figured we'd figure it out as we went, and that was where it all started.
That's absolutely fantastic. I feel like anything of substance requires you to jump in head first. Like, I noticed, like, as a young professional, you always see the big titles. You see the chief executive, you see the CFO, you see those things, and you think that they just kind of naturally have that. And then as you kind of reverse engineer that, you kind of realize there's so much gold and beautiful, like, substance that you learn when you put yourself in the foundational levels. It's like you said, when you first started, you're doing all the transactions, 68 deals that 1 year by yourself, no coordinator. Well, you kind of learned every single hat. So you knew when you kind of once you started getting a little bit of help and you got that team, you realized what each of those kind of took. So when you did have somebody in that role, now you can kind of speak with a little bit more empathy and understanding of where those friction points are, because you're like, hey, when I did this was my biggest headache. Here's what I'd recommend. That was my best workflow. And I'm fortunate enough because I remember, doing the mundane stuff that you're like, oh God, this is going to take forever. Then you have somebody to help you out. You're like, okay, do this. And you kind of have more patience because you realize that it wasn't an easy job. And sometimes most people would overlook it. So the title thing, I think we kind of just evolve into, and then looking back, you're kind of like, yeah, I remember that time, that phase of life. 100%.
Yeah. Well, something that makes me think of that there is very early on. So we recommended to us was the book. Oh my goodness. Rocket Fuel. And the book Rocket Fuel was recommended, like, you need to read that before you form a team, especially with like partnerships, but you understand like how it goes. So we read the book. We're like, hey, this actually is a pretty good fit. Like, I'm the visionary and the artist kind of thought person there. Blue's the integrator. Like, he's definitely far more like checklist oriented and
executor kind of thing.
Like execute. And so over time, we realized that we still missed the boat a little bit with that because we shared a lot of the same things. But at KW, which we're not at KW anymore, we're there for 3 years. But during that time, we did plug into some pretty good stuff, which was like you're talking about. Like, I think leadership, it's important to understand personality traits, things that actually fulfill certain people may not fulfill other people, things that I may enjoy doing, somebody else absolutely may despise. The things I may despise, they may absolutely love. And so that was a big thing for us to learn there, is that like every team needs quarterbacks and every team needs, like staff people to like put the balls in the thing before they get on the plane. And
Yeah.
they need coaches and they need training staff and they need people to tape feet and they need
Ticket
ankles.
sales.
Like ticket, it's everything. And what drives somebody may absolutely scare the crap out of somebody else, to have all the pressure on you to be the quarterback. And you're like, nah, dude, I'm like third string practice and I'm totally happy with that. It doesn't matter
Right.
which one you're in, but realizing that pretty early was that there are certain strengths that I had, and there were certain weaknesses, of course, that like just personality traits, the things that just drove me crazy, things that I wouldn't put the energy or effort into because I despised them.
Mm-hmm.
And so that took us a little while to actually really dial in, but trying to find the right people for certain roles who really like in your personality styles, like you're probably familiar with like your disc profiles and things like that.
Yep.
But there's the natural one and then there's the adapted one. And a lot of people can adapt and do certain roles. I adapted for the first 9 years of my life and did all the roles.
Mm-hmm.
But my natural wasn't that. And so like we started really trying to find the people who were naturally in their natural environment. That's the things they're going to like. And so you realize there's extroverted people and introverted people. So there's in front of the scenes kind of face and brand of the business, and there's behind the scenes. And they're all equally important, because I couldn't do anything I do today without the people on our team and support staff and places. Like it's just, the whole thing is integral to each other.
Yep.
And you know, until you've done it and made tons of mistakes, hired the wrong people, unfortunately had to part ways with people, it really, really becomes a challenge to, I don't want to say balance that out, but get in a flow with that. And then like over time through repetition, you start to just have like a little bit more of a natural ability to it. But even to this day, one of the last admins I hired was the wrong choice. Looked great on paper, going through what I'd been through. And luckily for us, the second candidate, didn't go away, and we were able to bring her in, and she's the absolute best choice. So like, even though I think I have a better feel for what I'm doing today, as of 6 to 8 months ago, I'm still making mistakes and learning from them. You know, like I think that's like a key to any kind of, like you said, leadership for a team, growing a business, like if you're not able to learn, if you're not willing to adapt and change and grow and develop as a person in general, like, okay, you're going to struggle in so many things, but as a leader for sure, because if you get super dogmatic and set in your ways, you can get left behind pretty quick. And that's probably the biggest challenge of leadership, I would say, is just like, get the ego out of the way, find the right people, plug them into the right seats on the bus, and like,
let's go.
Trust it and let it go. Like you have to have trust too, you know, like micromanaging things early on, having my hands in things. And it's like, nah, you're just screwing stuff up to feel important, man. Like you're just throwing monkey wrenches in the spokes to like make yourself feel important. And like, I try my best now to keep out of that kind of stuff and let people do what they're really good at. And if you find the right people and do great work, it's kind of interesting. You just you attract that type of culture and talent and things to your business, and then you have fun doing it versus like trying to fit that square peg in a round hole all the time.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Like, is there any way that you found, like, do you do these personality tests maybe in the application process? Is that when you kind of try to assess, or is it all just kind of feel like you have an interview and you ask the questions that you feel might be able to, you know, maybe let these traits kind of ring through? But is it more of a gut feeling, or do you kind of do a little bit of mixture with tests and whatnot?
At first, we started out, and everyone on the team and everyone we tried to hire or interviewed that did the DISC test. And we would take that. And then we realized very quickly that that thing is not like foolproof.
Right.
And so I don't use DISC as much as the 4 Ps. And you may or may not have heard the 4 Ps, but it's power people, party people, perfectionist people, and peaceful people. Right. So it's kind of like DISC, like, or I said it backwards, but D being your driven, dominant, or your power person.
Yep.
Your I being your influential or your party person, your social person. your peaceful person being your S, you're steady, you're very calm and collected. And then your last P is your perfectionist or your C. Your checklist kind of oriented, just like very by the book kind of person. So when I learned the 4 Ps, I could remember them a lot easier. So I tend to just, as I'm talking with people, I can pretty quickly, I do this with clients, I do this with friends, I do this with people I meet in the grocery store, at the coffee shop, it doesn't matter. Pretty
Become
quickly,
your
you can
standard.
understand one or two of the P's, if you will, which one are they driven by or motivated by. So I do use it, but it's very informal. We don't do any of the tests anymore. I think it's just now at this point, like over time, having conversation and learning better questions to ask people on my own about their life in general and their hobbies and their activities and what really excites them and what doesn't. That gets a lot more to me out of like how I feel like they're gonna fit and work with us within the little system we have built and the family that we have here. Um, I don't ask anybody to take the test anymore, but I do
Hmm.
think it was key because if I hadn't had 10 or 12 or 15 of those, I wouldn't have known how to read them. So I don't know that I would do it any different. So somebody starting out early, like do that stuff, test yourself. I made my wife take it. Blue took it. I took it. We had every applicant we did. We had the agents already working with us, and like we just then took them and kind of matched. Like, all right, this is what it says. This is what you do. How close is it? And we
Right.
look at that so many times, you start to learn. But that would be like to me, that's a key because if the person's working in their sort of natural, not the adapted, but like they don't put on this different hat, go to work and act like this person and do this where they're miserable, but they can still do it. They can do it at a high level, but they're in their natural environment where this is what they do all the time. This is how they treat their health and their fitness and their mental aspect and their family life and their house and their car. I mean, one of the best things I ever heard was Tony Robbins, I think, said, like in an interview, I go out and check their car.
Yep. I
Because
see.
if
He
their
sees it
car
as,
is a freaking
yep.
disaster,
It's an
they're
indicator.
probably a disaster. So if you're looking for somebody to keep you organized and be very tidy and on top of things, and their cars looks like a bomb went off with Cheetos and dirt and clothes and leftover bottles of stuff, like that's probably a better sign than an adaptability test on a disc profile, right? So like little things like that. I mean, unfortunately, I don't like get to go to people's cars and houses and see them, but
Yeah.
you learn little things like that's that mixture you're talking about, where it's like it's just not this as straightforward as take a personality test and you're a fit for this job.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great indicators just to kind of see like the day to day behaviors because that's usually what's going to be the influence on who you truly are as an individual and then
Hmm.
typically a professional. Man, it sounds like you have a lot of wisdom in terms of like things to look for because you have a great experience. Is there conferences or things that you try to put yourself in the room a certain amount of times a year, or is this a lot of podcasts? I'm sure a mixture of the two, but I love how you have so much knowledge on certain ideas of the philosophy behind leadership, not just so much the ways that we do it, but the thought process and the behaviors. That's so keen and interesting. Tony Robbins being a big name. I noticed you follow Jordan
Yeah.
Peterson, but is there anything that you typically like to go to?
I mean, I've done conferences in the past. I've done online stuff. I read or I listen to, just put it in my ears while I'm driving or walking or doing whatever else. But like Audible books, podcasts for sure. So recently I was on a little panel up in Asheville for a talk, and they asked us the question like, "Hey, what do you feel like your superpower is?" Like, try not to be humble and modest about it, but like figure out really what it is. What would people? And it was like just kind of questioning and asking my team and the people around me that knew me. They were like, "Dude, like you're a learner. That's your superpower. Is like the
Mm,
ability to learn and the hunger to want to soak up knowledge and learn." And I call agents and friends all around the country. I have a Facebook group full of other real estate agents doing stuff. Like I listen, I pay attention, listening to books, I'm listening to podcasts, I read things, I stay up on whatever I can. And yes, conferences have been a part of that in the past. I've done multiple ones of those. Mentioned the Boomtown one, the Curator one, been to some EXP stuff. I mean, there's several. I mean, I could list off several that I've
hmm.
done. So there's not just one thing. It's just to me, like that's just who I am.
Yep.
I enjoy learning. I'm always trying to develop and get better. I don't care if it's 1% better a day, a week, a year. Eventually, if you just keep doing something to do that, And I think that's kept me kind of out in front of it. So I have soaked in a lot. Now, the challenge that I find with that, and like my wife would tell you if she was sitting here, is like implementing and executing on the things you learn is the challenge. Like Gary Vee, I think he was like, ideas are shit, execution's the game,
Yep.
right? I don't know if I can say that, sorry.
No, you absolutely
but,
can.
Yeah. But it's like, that's so true. You can learn everything you want, but if you never execute, if you never take action, if you don't actually get the ball rolling and try things, and like, I don't think there's any better way to learn than just get out there and make mistakes and then own them and just adapt and learn. Like, you can study how to throw a football and read every book out there and all the planes and mechanics and like physics and stuff of it. And then you grab a football and you're like, crap, my hand is way too small for this ball and I don't throw it like they said. They're like, right, it doesn't matter. Like, so you have to then figure out how to adapt and learn. And you're like, oh, that didn't work out. Let me try that again.
Yep.
And like, I don't mind failing at something. I absolutely despise quitting.
Yes.
Like, I won't quit. I always want to figure something out. And I feel like I'm smart enough to figure it out if I give myself enough time and repetitions, and I'll study it and things like that. So like, that has just always been the thing. I hate to fail or just not be as best as I can. And that's kind of been one of those things that's just kept me learning over the time. And yeah, I feel like I feel like I've just scratched the surface of the whole leadership and stuff, but there's a lot of things to pull from and learn from, and personal experiences, books, and conferences, and just learning from others, man. Like, that's just one of those things that I love it.
Yes.
It's part of my DNA. So it doesn't feel like work for me. What's hard for me is to turn that off, not to get motivated to go do it.
Yep.
And so like not consuming too much. And I heard a guy named Alex Ramosi. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not.
Yep.
He talked about how like for years, he basically, he would read a book and he would not let himself start or do another book until he actually implemented the things that he took away from that book. And I was like, why am I reading the book? So I did scale back on some of that and ended up going back and like, all right, well, let me try that. Let me revise this. Let me go back and reread some of the books that had the most impact on me and see what I can do to implement those and make those second nature. Instead of putting 1,000 things in my brain, let me take the 10 that I feel like could really make the most impact, and let me get really good at those. So let me go deeper, not wider. That was a struggle for me. Still a struggle to this day, because I'll talk to somebody like you or Tyler or Austin or some of my buddies around the country or whatever. Somebody will send me a book. Somebody will send me a podcast. So they know I love this. And it's like, oh, I want to take all this stuff in. But at the same time, I have to actually execute on some stuff. So like tapering it down is harder for me than trying to go out and find the stuff.
Yeah, I definitely need to take a page from your book right there, because literally you hit it on the head, man. I'm literally trying to finishing like a John Wooden book, got like a TED Talks, like how to give the perfect speech book, and like 2 other ones that like Dale Carnegie, and I'll read like the first 30 pages, and then a week will go by, and then another one I'll buy on Amazon used books for like $3, and I have to get that. There's a whiteboard next to me with all those ideas with no execution as of yet. So sometimes I get those feelings of overwhelmness, like, damn, I got so much on my plate. But it's just, like you said, in your DNA, you're excited, you want to learn it, but you start grabbing from every angle, and you're not tunnel vision on one. So I got to adapt and maybe scale back, implement the one book, finish it, implement what it's teaching you, then move on.
Well, I think that's like, think about that in a workout. If I gave you 72 workouts to do,
Good
you
point.
read them all, and they all have different programming, different time frames. Some were to bulk, some were to cut, some were just for physical therapy and rehab. Like if you started trying to put all those together, you would be a mess, man.
Yep.
Like it wouldn't. Your workouts would. You could go and do a workout. You think you're doing great. You're going through the motions, but nothing builds on each other. You don't get momentum. You don't have progressive overload. Like all those things that go. So I'm a fitness nut too. I enjoy working out and lifting and stuff. So like that applies to so many things. You could try the keto diet, and you could try the low carb or the high carb. You could try carb cycling. You could try the carnivore. You could try the Mediterranean. Like you could try all these in the same day.
Right.
And yet none of it is going to work. But if you picked any of them and did them for 6 months, they would probably all work.
Yes.
Right? Like, so it's the same concept to me, and that's hard for me because I am the guy who's like a squirrel on acid or something at the gym. Like I get
Yeah.
bored. I want to try something new. And I'm like, no, this is not what I'm doing. So like just having that discipline to just be boring and sort of execute on things and try to be consistent. And the key for me there is sustainability. That
Yep.
was my word of the year last year. I've never really done that before, but it just happened to be that. I didn't like pick it. I just learned that's what it was. And it's the word of the year for this year too. I didn't need a new one. And that was kind of like, oh, I might have actually learned something from that last year is what can I sustain? Crash diets and crazy fad workouts, working out 3-4 times a day, doing all this prospecting 10 hours a day, trying to recruit 25 people a month. I can't sustain that. But what I
Mm-hmm.
can sustain is certain activities that keep those things rolling over and over again. I can do something to move every day. I can put better stuff in my body today or at the next meal than I did before. I can make at least one connection with somebody this week. That's a good real estate thing. And if I just keep doing those, so that's the compound effect, right? Darren Hardy's book. I don't know if you've read that or not. Fantastic book, but it's like these little seemingly like inconsequential things that you could do, but can you do them over time, day in and day out? Like, don't try to change your whole diet in one time. Don't try to change your whole real estate business in one thing. Don't try to change your whole team in one thing, in 1 week, in one day.
Mm.
Like, could we just start meeting on Tuesdays for 30 minutes? Who cares what the meetings are about? Can we just become the type of people who, Atomic Habits, can we become the type of people who meet and mastermind? Can
Mm-hmm.
we become the type of people who at least record our sales and our sources to learn where they come from? Can we just do that? Like nothing else changes. Can we just pay it? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
those
100%.
little things.
Yeah.
And so like that was a big flip for me. Like I took all this world of knowledge in or tried to and still kind of fight that off. And it's like, all right, well, I have to sift through it and figure out what happens. But then it becomes, you said the word overwhelming. It
Mm-hmm.
becomes overwhelming. Like just pick anything. Pick
Yep.
one thing, pick two things, something that you feel like you can sustain and do those things over and over. So that has become our marketing platform, like our marketing plan. That includes you guys at Dippity, of course.
Mm-hmm.
There's a few things that I don't want to go without.
Mm-hmm.
Remarketing, retargeting are things that I just know I want to consistently do. And I don't care if it's on a $5,000 budget a month or a $500 budget a
Yep.
month. I want to keep doing it. If we need to dial it up or back, we will. I don't care if it's, like there's just so many of those things that happen, but like there's certain things that we know if we do, then it's going to be there. Well, I think that's the same thing with any business or any sales job or leadership mentality is like, as a leader, can you have a conversation with your people once a week?
Yep.
Like a heart to heart, like just call them for no reason other than it was just time to call.
Yeah.
Probably going to get into something there that comes out, and you didn't have to have this 62-page blueprint for your people on leadership and
Yeah.
like how to become the most effective, like whatever, like maybe if you just talk to them and figure out their pain point because you've done it 17 times in a row over the last 17 weeks, maybe something comes through.
Absolutely.
Like it feels like it's all over the place there, but to me that sustainability is like key, because if you can't do that, you burn out. Well, what good is a leader who's burnt out and isn't really all dialed in or focused and like trying 72 other things? People don't follow that very well. I have learned that the hard way by testing things and trying, and people are like, oh, what's new this week?
Yeah, as a form of entrepreneurship, your mind doesn't shut down on Friday at 5. If anything, it speeds up, and you're always thinking of ideas to increase efficiency, productivity, and reduce cost. And usually that sometimes can make like you're rewriting a whole playbook. So I know what you mean by like Monday morning, hey, we should do this, this, this. And eventually the team will catch on like, oh my God, another new system or another new update. And that does kind of scare them and probably gets them in a form of, discomfort. You mentioned the word for sustainability. You said the word like almost make it boring, mundane, vanilla. I heard a sermon last week. The pastor was talking about, he's like, when we see yellow lights, our first indicator is to speed up. We're in an intersection. It's yellow. I'm not sitting in this line for 4 minutes or this traffic light for 4 minutes. I'm hauling butt. And the whole premise was on the idea of like, if it's a yellow light, why do we feel like we need to speed up? What if we just slowed down and focused in that moment on whatever the topic at hand is? So if we can find ways to take moments of when you have something presented to you, it should be an indicator to slow down, focus versus be rampant and fly through the intersection just because you're in a speed and a rush. And I think that's just a healthy reminder that, hey, like let's slow it down. Let's just try to focus on this one thing so we can alleviate the word overwhelming. It's a scary word.
Yeah, that helped me a lot during COVID. I remember I was writing at home. We weren't really, it was in the early stages where like you weren't sure if you should go out or not.
Right.
So we were at home and I was out in the driveway riding my stationary bike, and I was listening to the book Stillness is the Key by Ryan Holiday. And I highly recommend that book for people because we live in such like this fast paced, always changing, 24/7 connected, everything at a snap of a finger. DoorDash something to your car, Walmart delivers, you can get online and download any course you want. It doesn't matter what it is. It's all so fast. It's like sometimes just slowing down and being still can like have this great impact. And that's a very similar point to what you're making there. It's like, don't look at the yellow light as speed up because it's about to turn red and I got to get through here. It's like, you can look at it 100 different ways, but what if you try to speed through the light and somebody's coming through at the same time and you crash? Was that better for you? Like, you don't know what's on the other side. So like, it's not always better to go fast and break things. Now you can fix that. And I've been the kind of guy that'll jump out of the airplane and try to build the parachute on the way down.
Yep. Totally
cool with that too. But I think like you have to kind of understand like what are you comfortable with and what you do. And I think that stillness can be super hard. It's uncomfortable because you don't feel like you're doing stuff sometimes. And that, I guess I'll take that to my other point. Something I really want to talk about here for people who are listening. There was one little book that completely changed the whole course of my life, my trajectory of business, how I approach things. It was called Life and Air, Life an Air, Onaire, like millionaire, but replace it with life. And that book just resonated with me. And the whole premise is like most people, the biggest takeaway I took from the book is most people just truly, honestly have zero idea of what they really want out of life. They don't know what they want their days to look like. They don't know what they want to make in a year. They don't know what are truly important to them. They have absolutely no planning put into it. They'll plan 10 hours to go to the beach for a week and rent a hotel and get the golf carts and all the pool passes and just where are we going to eat and who's going and what tour or cruise are we going to take and blah, blah, blah. But they've spent 0 hours in the last 10 years planning their life, like actually thinking about like, so you're kind of getting out what you put into it. But I spent quite a long time after I read that book. A friend of mine sent it to me, and like I read that book probably 5 or 6 times. I took their online Get a Life, Get Away, like it was a 3-day thing, a business builder course, and just totally realized like, so bringing it back to like this whole team thing for us now, I realized then what I had and what I'd been building for the last 5 years was not what I wanted. It was what I thought I was supposed to build because that's what everybody else in the industry was coaching on, or they were telling you that's how they had built it. I would say 90% of the people who have built teams did it because the Real Estate Millionaire book, the red book, told them that's how they were supposed to do it. Well, that's one way to do it, right? Like, and so keeping up with the Joneses and sort of having this ego and I want these sales volumes. Like sales volume to me is irrelevant if your margin's 1%. Like I would, somebody doing 100 million in sales at 1% or somebody doing 40 million at 40%. I'm going to take the 40 million at 40% all day long, right? Like slower pace of life, less moving parts, a lot of things, but I had never truly actually sat down and figure out what I wanted. And so I think there's like a takeaway for people in there is if you're looking at from the whole leadership and building a team or a business or just your own individual business, it doesn't matter. What do you want your days to look like? Like, what's your ideal day? What's your ideal week look like? Fit your business around that, not go do a bunch of business that somebody else told you to do and then come back. Because at a certain point, how do you lead other people when you have no idea where you're going yourself? Right? Like, that's just a concept to me that I can't believe I spent 13 years screwing up because I had just never heard it. So I always try to share at least the whole, even if it's not like the whole life and air mentality or whatever, but it's just that whole point of like, you have to figure out what life you want, what business you want, or else you're going to live somebody else's definition of it for you.
Right. we're just going around aimlessly.
Excuse me.
We're just going around aimlessly, unfortunately. And I think that stems from, when people go to college, it kind of is off that, what you were getting at earlier. It's like we go to school, we have no idea what we want, what we strive for, our passions, our goals. You're still in development stages. You're 18 to 22. I'm still fairly young. At least I like to think that. But even 26, 27, it's still continuing to mold and new passions develop. I meet new people that inspire me. I watch podcasts of people that are 20 or 30, 50 years older than me that carry a wisdom about them that I would not have known had I not spoke to them. So I just think it's going to continue. That line is going to continue to move of where you're supposed to be. But I'd agree with you. Like we go around aimlessly and understanding of what we truly want day to day. 5 years from now, our family, our loved ones, where we want the business to look like. Like there's a lot that goes into trying to focus on a main focal point of what it is we actually want.
Sure. Well, if you have don't get me wrong, like, so I use the example with our team when I was first, like, really just thinking through this and talking it out. And that's one thing I've always done. Very open, sharing. I'm not afraid of failure. Certainly share them. I'm hoping that we get our team, like, you need to make all the same mistakes I made coming. I'm just hopefully going to help you get through them quicker than I did, and get you to the point where you don't make them as much or as fast. Like, don't learn them the hard way over and over and over again. Learn it the hard way once and then learn from it. So getting through a lot of those mistakes and things, to me, was invaluable, because I wouldn't want to go back and not learn the things I've learned from making the mistakes I've learned or not knowing.
True.
But man, I wish somebody early on would have, I wish something would have clicked with me when I was 25 or 30. I was 34 years old when I first read that Life and Air book, and it just clicked. And it wasn't that I had never heard it before in these books. It was never that I hadn't heard about setting goals or having a vision board. It was the way the story was told to me. It resonated with me. And so I ended up actually taking it more to heart and then figured out like how it worked for me. So if I could have got through 15 years of real estate in 5 years or 3 years, man, I would have had such a long way to go. Like, I would have paid more money for that up front, like 100%. To have it quicker. But I think a lot of people are like, because like you say, they're aimlessly, they have no target in mind. So when I was talking through it with my team, I'm like, let's pretend like we're like, okay, we don't know the exact place or life vision that we want. But can you kind of get a feel for what you think it might look like? What's important to you? Do you have a big family? Do you have a small family? Do you have no family? It doesn't matter. Whatever. It's your choice. But everyone's version of that is different. But let's just say in the equivalent of, let's say I want to go to the beach. Mm-hmm. And that's my plan. I'm making a life plan, and I'm equating it like, all right, my target in life is, in this analogy, the beach. I want to go somewhere to the beach where I can spend a vacation. I want there to be sand. I want there to be sun. I want there to be water. I want there to be pools and stuff for my kids to play with. Great. Okay. Well, I live in North Carolina. So if I just head east 4.5 hours, I'm going to hit a beach. So if I at least get in my car and get going towards the beach in that direction, I will eventually hit the beach and water. What so many people I think are afraid of is that if they don't pick the right beach on the first time, that they've just completely wasted. And it's like, no, get yourself into the general area. Now, if I head a certain path, I'll end up in Myrtle Beach. I personally can't stand Myrtle Beach. It's touristy. There's way too many Eagles shops and chain restaurants and people and cars and billboards and just all this crap. Like, that is not my idea of a vacation. So if I got to Myrtle Beach and realized, hey, you know what? I am at the beach, but this doesn't look exactly like what I had. Now that I'm here, I kind of realize this is not, okay, cool. What is it about here? Well, I don't really like all the things I just told you. Okay, so can I revise that and step back for a minute and go, okay, I'm kind of here. I got to where I thought I wanted to be, but I'm not exactly still there. What could I change now that I'd be happier about? What could I eliminate? What could I add? Okay, cool. So I want a little more private. Okay, let me start searching for some more private beaches. All right. Hey, I still like restaurants and I like the privateness of it. So maybe I wanted a gated community or something like that, or a resort type setting where there's things to do and pools and still. Okay, cool. Now I got a couple options. I've got like your uh, Ocean Lakes campground where it's got water parks and you got pools and everybody rides golf carts and like kind of cool, but still way too many people for me. All right, what's next? Like Fripp Island. I'm leading you through like this path of like that was how we settled where we go to vacation every
Mm-hmm.
year now
Mm-hmm.
because we just kept doing that. You can do that with your life plan and goal too, but you got to figure out some of the basics of the fundamentals of beach, water, 4 or 5 hour drive away. You know what I mean? Like, but if you
Establish
sit
the
there the whole
foundational.
time trying to, but if you try to research and find the perfect place to go, and then you spend all of your energy and might to go to that place and it's not right, and you feel like you're a failure there, like, dude, you did it wrong to me.
Right.
Like, that wasn't it. Like, but you got to take that first step. So most people keep researching forever. They don't implement, they don't execute, they don't test, they don't like mess up. And it's like, hey, you still had a vacation. You were still at the beach. You can still make the most of the time you're there. Just no, don't go back there, or it's not where you want to be for the rest of your life, and you don't have to settle for that. Like to the idea of really get clear with your life plan, as clear as you can right now, and in a year from now or 2 years, look back and like, what can you clear up some more? And then as you start going towards there, you'll be able to then figure out, okay, what sustains this for me? How do I actually take this and build my business around it? How do I actually put the right people around me on my team or my clients or my vendors or whoever it may be, my partners like you guys, that can help me support and sustain the life vision that I have for me?
Absolutely.
And that to me is like the key of, all right, this is how you should go about it. And like, I like those analogies because they help. I think they help me more so than anything else. And like the more I say them, the more I realize like, okay, I'm kind of revising my own thing here. But I think most people can really align with that and relate to that as far as like, okay, cool. Like you got to the beach. It's not the beach you like. Let's start revising. We don't have to go back to the mountains to find another beach, right? So like, but you're still a lot closer from one beach to the next beach than you were in the mountains. Or if you got on a road headed west, that's a long way to California, man, from North Carolina. And there's a lot of hiccups and hardships and hurdles and things, and you're going to feel like you're a failure. But it's because you just got in the car and started somewhere. No, like get a target and start figuring some of the things out, and then you can dial it in as you go.
Love that, man. Yeah, it's fantastic. It's a paradigm shift. People don't necessarily they see it for a one-to-one trade-off. If it is a painful experience where it doesn't work out, whatever the scenario may be, it's they shut down, they deflect, they put up that safeguard versus, like you said, self-assessment. Well, okay, if this is not the destination, well, what is? What do I like? What do I want to be around? Little by little, that book, I'm sure it elaborates, and I'm excited. You've dropped like 7 or 8 books that I'm definitely going to have to go back and write them all down. That last one that you mentioned is definitely high on the list now to kind of reevaluate and assess where do I personally want to have the life goals? Because, I think I internalize it, right? I think we all might have a general idea, but it's not necessarily on pen and paper. And anything I've learned in my short life is once you put it in written word, just like journaling, it kind of becomes the law, and it kind of actually attracts you towards that common goal.
For me, it was, I'm young. I don't buy into this whole idea of retirement as it's been sold to the American population,
Mm-hmm.
the world, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of me working in a job that I don't enjoy or a career I don't like, with people I may or may not enjoy, doing activities each day for longer periods of time than I think are absolutely necessary or whatever, and being inefficient at it to make money, to basically put my kids in sports that I don't get to go to colleges that they may or may not really actually thrive in. They don't know if they're going to do it. It doesn't matter. His whole point of I'm going to spend the prime of my life working to make money because I bought things to potentially impress people that I don't care what they think about me in the long run. I think I do, but I'm trying to keep this whole thing going through the prime of my life to then one day escape to this magical thing when I'm older. I'm not in the prime of my life. Like, to me, I can work when my kids go to college and go out on their own and start building their own family. Like, there's only so much golf and working out
Yep.
and reading books that I'm going to do. I'm going to get bored.
Right.
And so I'm going to want to provide value to people and things. And so, like, when I learned that, I'm like, so why would I spend 60, 70, 80 hours a week trying to bank up a bunch of money to live the rest of my life on at some point and miss my kids growing up, going to their soccer practices, coaching their teams, picking them up from the park, taking them and dropping them off at school? Like, could my wife go and do all those little? Absolutely. But like, I choose to do those things because that's kind of where I call that the garbage time. It's not like this perfect, picturesque quality time that you get with your kids. You're not over some campfire roasting marshmallows like for a whole weekend, like this bonding. You're in the car, they're watching a video game, you're talking, like, whatever. But it's garbage time, and that's a lot of it. And so, like, there's a lot of value in that for me. And so I started trying to figure out, like, all right, how do I design my business to where, what do I want? I only want to work 3 or 4 hours a day, cumulative. But when I work, I want to make enough money to do the things we want to do. How much money is that? Do I need fancy car? No, they get me from point A to point B. They don't really give me fulfillment. So I'm not going to buy a new car every year or spend a bunch of money on one, have payments and obligations. So I don't need that much extra, like certain things to that. And that's how I started kind of designing out the life that I wanted and the schedule that I wanted to do. I like to work out every day. I like to go generally earlier in the day. So I don't I drop my kids off at a certain time. I want to work out at a certain time. I want to pick them up at a certain time. And so, like, I fit my work in there, 9 to 12, 9 to 12:30 every day is like my focused time block time for work. And I better be pretty freaking efficient during that time, or else I'm going to let myself down because I'm not really wanting to work 7 or 8 hours. So somebody else's 7 hours of halfway through and then not paying attention, not having a plan, just talking at the water cooler, that's totally different than my 3 hours of focus where I literally won't answer my phone.
And you lock.
Unless it's something I'm focused on. Right. And so, like, that to me has made me a better leader in general, is because once I figured out what I really wanted, I figured out who I really wanted to do it with and the type of people who would benefit from being in a mutually beneficial sort of relationship with me at that time. And I then realized I want to build a real estate team around the team I would want to be on. Not a rainmaker team, not this like trickle down economy of real estate leads and like whatever. Like, I'm too busy for all this, so you minions take it, whatever kind of deal. Now, there are people who need those. Yeah. And they still have those opportunities with us, but that's not the core of our business. And so, because I don't want to manage that. I don't want to hold them accountable to something I wouldn't hold myself accountable to.
Beautiful.
I need to let them get through that. They need some reps and some learning, you know what I mean? So it's like that. But that helped me become a better leader because I realized, like, man, my life vision and yours are going to be totally different. And so sitting and talking with people about, figure this out for you. Because I could be thinking you're not doing what you're wanting to do and you're not making $150,000 a year. But then again, you only wanted to make 60 because your wife is, a doctor or something. She makes killer money and you want to be able to stay at home and take care of your kid and play golf and work out and do some other things in life. You know what I mean? Like,
I love it.
So now I can like help them achieve what they want to achieve and sort of have a system built around it to help them. And to me, I haven't learned that in a book. Right. I haven't just read that. I had to experience that for myself to understand that, holy crap, this life that I was living and thought I was building in this team and business I thought I wanted was really sold to me by really great marketers. And I wasn't they outmarketed me. I didn't know what I wanted. And so they sold me stuff that I necessarily didn't need. And I tried a bunch of it. And I just don't want to see people do that I'm around or doing that. So that's kind of how been like reshaped my whole outlook on things, is like, I just want to help you achieve what you want to achieve. And if it fits within, like, if it's beneficial for me and beneficial for you and beneficial for the whole group, that everybody can like have this win-win-win mentality, to be honest with you, leadership's not that hard after that. Because I'm not their sergeant out there. I'm just a friend and a colleague who share mutual things, so then it's just a culture that we all enjoy working and being around. And it just so happens that I built the systems.
Yep.
that they plug into. Like, and I mentor and coach the young ones that want it, but I've got agents on my team now that are doing more than I am. And I'm totally thrilled for that, because that helps me live the life that I penciled out. And I don't have that ego to need to like, oh, I have to go beat you now. You finally beat a number I've never done. I have to beat you. No, that is absolutely the furthest thing. It would take me away from every single thing that I visioned out that I want for my life. And like, why? And so to be honest, like knowing myself and figuring out what I wanted was probably the one thing. You ask in your pre-interview questions, what's the intangible thing that you think makes? Like, that's it. Figuring out who I am and what I really, really want was the most, you can't pick that up and touch that or whatever. And that was a hard journey. But as soon as I figured it out for me, and it's probably not what it'll be in a year from now or 2 years from now.
Yeah.
It just adapts and molds, and I learned like you're going to the beach and looking for new ones. But that one thing leapfrogged me so far in how I look at everything. And I'll start with the Life and Air book. You said the books, Life and Air, The Go-Givers, any of the Go-Givers, the Go-Giver original book, The Leader book was a fantastic one. The Influencer book, like that series, I really enjoy those. I enjoy like parable type books. I don't know why, but that's kind of a thing. And then The Compound Effect. Those would probably be the ones, I guess that's 5 books, because there's 3 Go-Givers, Life and Air, and The Compound Effect. If you just read those 5 books and just really implemented things, like you'd probably be amazed at what you could do in 5 years. Even less time, but like, holy crap, life would look totally different in 5 years for most people.
Man, I'm so thankful that we were able to talk today. That wisdom right there. I mean, this last 45 to an hour, I don't know how long it's been now, but man, you dropped some heat. I'm excited to get to meet you in person. Hopefully we're on a panel one day, and I'm definitely going to read a couple of those books, man, just to kind of dive deeper and really kind of understand.
Share back with me.
Oh, I'll hit you in the DMs.
I get more out of that than I think most other people do. Like, if you read it and you take away, that was worth every minute of us sitting here together today.
Yes,
whether
sir.
anybody ever watches this interview or not. Like, if it has an impact for you, like, that made me happy.
Absolutely, man. And I'll drop your Instagram handle in this episode. That way, so if anybody else hears it, reaches out to you, it can do what it does. But man, thank you absolutely. So much time. Thank you for so much of your time, man. It was beautiful. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person. Hopefully we can link up in the next year or two, but we'll definitely get together and talk deeper on this.
It was my pleasure, Corey. I appreciate it, buddy. Thanks for having me on.
Charles. Enjoy your week, brother. Have a great one, man. Bye, brother.
Bye.